I didn't get a lot of sleep. My nose is running. My head is stuffed. I just don't give a fuck.
You're wearing your squishy bathrobe.
I am. I
You don't
am.
fuck with a woman who's wearing her squishy bathrobe in the afternoon. You just don't. It's a bad idea.
It's witchcraft.
Hey, it's 4:20 a.m. Hi, and welcome to the Stoned Witches Hour, where we smoke lots of weed and try to spook each other out with scary tales from across the country. I'm Laylla over here in sunny California.
And I'm Chelle over here in drizzly Salem, Massachusetts.
We are two best friends on literal opposite coasts of the country. This is episode 14. Welcome to episode 14. How are you doing today, Chelle?
I'm a little high. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm not as high as I could be, but I'm getting there.
I got something new today that I actually really like. Not to just kind of like jump into things, but I got runts. Have you ever heard of runts?
Yes, I did. I like runts and pink runts.
Oh, I didn't know there was a pink runts, but very good, very good. It's very delicious. It's a very smooth smoke. I like it. I like it. So that's my treat of the day. I'm smoking some runts, again, store bought.
Is this another high THC for you, Chelle?
Yeah. I will tell you, it is, let's see. This particular batch is 35.77%.
Damn.
You know, I'm a fan of high numbers.
You like the big ones. That's true. Can't say I blame you.
And this one is a hybrid. So you're kind of getting the best of both worlds with it. But, again, you know how I go on about names. When you call it runts and put a little picture of a pineapple and a watermelon and an orange on there, I'm expecting a fruity flavor, kind of like runts candy. But it does not have a fruity flavor, much to my but I still love it.
Nice. Very nice.
They always lie to me with their names. They lie to me.
They do.
I'm expecting it to taste like runts candy.
If you want that, I would definitely recommend getting some type of, going a little more the wax or the butter. They very often will put flavored extracts like terpenes in there.
So that you do get that actual flavor.
Yeah. So I'm smoking some Abusive OG flower today because I do like that high THC.
Did you grow this or is this store-bought?
The Abusive is store-bought. So I'm getting a little tired of my homegrown. I grew a little bit too much of a particular cultivar. And so now I'm like, I don't want to keep smoking the Bruce Banner. Are we smoking that Jack Hare blueberry again today? No.
What do they call what do the kids call that nowadays? First world problems?
There you go. It's a first world stoner problem for sure.
Layla's getting tired of all that weed she's got piled up in the back of her closet.
I try to usually grow smaller batches of multiple cultivars, and this time I got a bunch of freebies, and so I just grew the hell out of that, and now I have too much, and we're in the process of doing all this other stuff, so my garden's in flux right now, and yeah. Anyway, it's all
my
good.
heart is breaking for you in the overabundance of weed.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate a little sympathy during this difficult time.
To all of our listeners out there, if you think Laylla is an asshole for having an overabundance of weed, please email us at thestonedwitcheshour@gmail.com and tell her how much of an asshole she is for her overabundance of weed.
Yeah, I guess when you have a dozen mason jars full of just 2 cultivars and you're crying about it, that's probably not a problem. Not really a problem.
First world stoner problems, man.
Exactly. But I am also smoking this butter. It's a new butter.
Are you mixing that with the flour?
Sometimes. My husband is actually a cannabis artist, and he likes to make bowls, and he'll do different types of, especially if they've got different colors, he'll do the shatter and the butter and the resin. You ever see those joints like on Instagram where they got this gorgeous joint and it's rolled in keef and it's got the wax wrapped around it and stuff? He does that in bowls, and he'll do the keef and he'll do the little pieces of shatter or butter, and they look really pretty. So sometimes, yes.
You can buy those here at the store. I'm quite the fan, but you know what the bitch is? Because here they do it in pre-rolls. Once you get maybe a little less than halfway down, the butter clogs the paper. And you basically, what I end up doing is I have to clip off some of it and actually smoke the rest of it in my bowl. But the butter clogs it in pre-rolls. And that's kind of a little bit of a drawback to putting butter on the flour in a pre-roll.
I found the same. They tend to look better than they smoke, but they are nice. They are very nice.
Oh, you'll get fucked up. Totally.
You get smashed.
But at the bottom end, you end up having to snip it off and put it in a pipe because it gets clogged.
Yeah. A little too much butter.
Back to first world stoner problems.
Right. So for those of you who maybe don't want quite that much THC, you can unwrap those butters or resins off of that pre-roll before you smoke it and smoke it in something else if that's going to cause a problem for you. So little tips and tricks from Chelle and Laylla.
It takes to smoke it and get high, people. Just smoke it.
This is a new company, Sticky AF.
Oh, it looks like bubble gum. It looks like a bubble gum wrapper.
It tastes like bubble gum. It tastes like watermelon bubble gum. So you were saying that if you want a flavor, sometimes these are good to get. And I really like I hate packaging, but I guess if you're going to make packaging, make it recyclable and fun. Like this, it says,
oh, fuck yeah.
Oh, that's exactly what it says. And then check this out. So the whole thing has different words.
Oh, that's so cool.
So.
And what is that? What is that called?
This is their watermelon butter. It tastes like watermelon, and it does taste like the last hit I got of it. I literally said to my husband that it tasted like watermelon bubble gum.
Oh my God. That's what I'm looking for. That is what I'm looking for. If it's just gonna taste like weed, just call it weed. But if you're gonna freaking call it runts, make it taste like runts, or don't be calling it runts.
Yeah.
That's all I ask. I had to laugh this week. I had been in contact with a couple of our listeners. And one thing that's kind of a common theme is they're like, you and Laylla are funny. You talk about cool shit. And they're like, but, you guys smoke a lot. I'm like, you're only getting an hour snapshot of our day.
Yeah, you think I smoke a lot in that hour? I'm talking. I can't smoke while I'm talking.
If you think we're smoking a lot during these recordings, spend a Saturday with us. We'll blow your mind. But I'm laughing because those couple of people both like specifically said, they're like, you guys smoke a lot. And I'm like, dude, you don't even know. Go camping with us.
You don't even know. Until you've been to an outdoor wedding with us, sitting in a circle with 150 of your closest friends, and the tent is so smoky, you can barely see the people that you're sitting next to and laughing with.
You're passing.
I have a bubbler on the ground in front of me, a pipe in one hand and a joint in the other, and I'm trying to figure out which one goes where. It's like, what was that game people used to play? Like we had to pass a spoon or something.
I don't know, but you can't play hot potato with weed with us.
No, so many smoking utensils going around at this wedding that you could barely see your neighbor.
But you know what? You know what the best part is I can distinctly think of at least 2 weddings that was like that for us.
Right. That's not just one.
It wasn't just one time.
That's right.
Remember when we would smoke all night in my apartment, and it was the same thing. Like my apartment was just like this big puff cloud, swim through the smoke to get to the bathroom.
That's right. People talk about hotboxing a car. I'm like, amateur, hotbox an apartment.
Yeah.
Or a wedding tent. Then talk.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm smoking today. It's pretty good stuff. I went on a road trip the other day, and part of the road trip was to go to a haunted house. And the other part was to get some famous weed. I wanted to try some top bud flower. And
why is it famous?
Seth Rogen.
Okay.
That's why.
Okay.
So last episode, I had been smoking on Pineapple Express, and I mentioned part of the reason I bought it was because it's the flower from Pineapple Express with Seth Rogen, which is hilarious.
Check it out, folks. Good movie.
Check it out. So I love Seth Rogen. I think he's great. And I even like his, do you know he does pottery?
I did not know that.
Yeah, he loves vintage ashtrays, I guess. And he started doing pottery with his wife. But anyways, he sells those. And he also sells his own brand of weed. And so it's called House Plant. He sells it in 3 different blends, an indica blend, a sativa blend, and a hybrid blend. And I think there's also vinyl. You can get a record with music to go with each blend.
Now, what makes his so fan freaking Ted? Why do I give a fuck about Seth Rogen's weed as opposed to Johnny down the block's weed?
Well, we were talking before about wanting to smoke Snoop Dogg's weed, which I do. I would also
like
that's
to Snoop Dogg, man.
Right, that's Snoop Dogg weed. I think Seth Rogen is well known for being a big connoisseur of weed. So for that reason, I'd like to try it and just to see if it is any better, because I'm guessing it's probably not.
I didn't realize he was like a big weed guy.
Oh, huge weed guy. Huge. He's well known for being stoned. He's right up there with, I would say he's the modern version of Cheech and Chong.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's pretty fun. They did have Cheech weed and Chong weed, which I didn't get because I was specifically going for Seth Rogen weed. So maybe next time I'll get some Cheech and Chong weed. But the dispensary that I had gone to was near the Whaley House in San Diego, California, which is known as they call themselves the most haunted house in America.
Oh, a lot of people say that, though. A lot of people say
that. That's very true. And this one has some history to go with it. It's in Old Town San Diego, which is gorgeous. When I went there, it was in the evening, beautiful sunset on the way. And this place has lights, like Christmas lights, sparkle lights everywhere. Ooh. There was music coming, multiple restaurants and cafes and little shops. As I found a parking spot, which was, fun in and of itself. Picture me smoking a joint, going around and around and around in a little parking lot, waiting for someone to pull out. Get my little parking spot, walk the half block to the Whaley House, and I see there were fireworks going on and everything. Beautiful spot to go to, even if you're not going to the Whaley House. But this is, I'm going to share my screen with you, Shell, so you can see some stuff. And I'll take you on a little tour.
Ooh, I love tours.
Right? Where's share screen? Oh, right there in front of my face. Okay. So this is the Whaley House.
Oh, wow.
Here in Old Town San Diego.
So it's like in a highly populated area. This isn't like just off out in the middle of nowhere.
No, at the time it was built in 1850.
1849.
Do you see it there?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. It was built in 1849 and it was built in the public square. It was actually built on the site where they did hangings.
Oh, Jesus. Why do they do that? Why do you build a house on a spot where you hung people and expect that to turn out well?
I have no idea. He had even witnessed several of the hangings that had happened there, including the hanging of Yankee Jim Robinson. James Robinson, sometimes called Yankee Jim, was one of the hangings that Thomas Whaley witnessed at that square. And Yankee Jim Robinson, well, let me show you the pictures before I get into that. So here's the Whaley House. This house has still a little bit of yard next to it. You can see that here. It's a brick house. It was the first 2-story brick house built in the area.
Oh, wow.
It was meant to be imposing. He wanted it to be impressive. It was also the site of, unlike a regular house, it had a courthouse in it. It started out as a granary, but it got rats. It was supposed to be a rat-proof granary and it had too many rats. So it transitioned to a couple different things over the years. And it was a courthouse for a long time. So you see that when you first enter the house is the courthouse.
But like people actually lived in it though, right?
People actually lived in it while it was a courthouse. And it was also a general store at the same time.
Oh,
so
nifty.
One of the rooms downstairs was a general store and you could get all your goods there and such. They have it all done up with different antiques, some from the house originally, some that are just period antiques that they brought in. This is a picture of the dining room, and the dining room has an interesting history because there's a little girl ghost that supposedly haunts the dining room. And I have heard two separate stories for her. In both of the stories, a tragic accident occurs and a little 4-year-old girl is brought into the dining room where she breathes her last on the dining room table.
Oh.
And it's her adorable, mischievous spirit that runs around. I'll tell you the two different stories here in a minute. This is a picture of Violet Eloise Whaley, and there's different portraits of the family throughout the house. And Violet is one of the more tragic stories, and her ghost is also said to haunt the house.
So is it pretty much kind of decorated the way it would have been then?
Yes, the whole thing is very much. I'm pretty sure the Whaleys are the only family to live there. The last Whaley died there in the early 1900s, and then after that, it very quickly after that became a museum.
Because if that's like their couch, like the couch that the Whaleys sat their asses on, I could see how that place would be permeated with their spirits.
According to the guide, some of the objects are original to the house, but most of them are not. I believe this couch is not. However, this is the couch. Violet Whaley, when I tell you her story, she committed suicide. The second floor had a theater in it.
Oh, wow.
And it's a very small room. There were 25 of us roughly in the tour. And I mean, it wasn't full by any means, but if you doubled it, I would say it was pretty tightly spaced. And when it opened, it had 150 people in the audience, and women were advised not to wear hoop skirts or petticoats because it was so packed in. They must have been packed tightly.
So you're figuring 25, 50 people tops, and they used to actually pack in 150 people?
Correct. And it was the first theater in the area back in the day.
Hope they all wore deodorant.
No, none of them do. So this is me.
In the theater.
In the theater. This is one of the bedrooms. This is the master bedroom.
For such a big house, I feel like that's a small bedroom.
It's actually not that big of a house by today's standards, but by standards back then, it was considered huge. And there were several rooms that we couldn't go into. There was like an additional bedroom upstairs and such.
Like private. They won't let people in.
Right. And the theater had been bedrooms back when they had 6 children living in the house. But, once their children were a little bit older, they had separate purposes. But this is the master bedroom. And some people do see apparitions in here. And this is the children's bedroom. This is the backyard looking to the house. And these trees were supposedly, the one in the front yard right here was supposedly planted by Violet Whaley, but the other ones are a little too young.
So it's only a museum? Like they don't do like overnight ghost tours or...
I believe they do sometimes. I've seen, occasionally they'll allow, once we get famous, I'm sure they'll let us in there to do an overnight, because I have seen that some people are allowed to do that. But the general public, you can go in the daytime. It was closed for about 2 years, about 1.5 years, 2 years, mostly due to COVID. And they did some renovations and updates and sprucing up at that time. And it just opened in the last couple months. So I was really excited to be able to go down there. You can do a self-guided tour during the daytime. And I do recommend that if you want to take pictures. I don't know if you noticed my pictures were kind of orangey. The lights are all orange and very low and flickery. They very much give it the atmosphere that you're back in the late 1800s. It's really great. So the daytime tour is nice if you want to take pictures and if you want to take your time in the rooms. You can't go in all of the rooms. Some of them have barricades in the doorway, but you can certainly see them very well and take lots of pictures. The tour at night is nice because you get a tour guide. Ours was Ghoulie Julie, and she was fabulous, knew all the history of the house. It was fun going there knowing what I know, but hearing the stories from someone else and slight differences that I hadn't been able to find in my research was fun to hear. So it was fun having a tour guide. The atmosphere was really neat. You really thought you could see a ghost. And I'll tell you my experiences here when we get to the story. Did I see a ghost or didn't I?
That's what I want to know.
Dun, dun, dun. So the nighttime is nice because of the tour guide. It's a lot of fun to do that. The atmosphere is great. You certainly do feel like you're going to feel something or see something around any corner. However, it's crowded. and you don't really get to spend a lot of time. I tried to kind of lag back behind the group so that I can get some pictures of the rooms by themselves without people
kind of
in them.
Difficult to do that.
Very difficult to do that. Plus, you kind of feel like you're holding things up. But, a couple times I was like running up to the tour guide, being like, "Yep, I'm the last one out," and so I felt a little rushed, and I felt a little crowded. So maybe do them both. It's so $15 during the day, I think, or 12 or 15, and like $18 at night. So it's not very expensive.
Oh, that's cheap.
And Don't forget to tip your tour guide. They're fabulous.
Ghoulie Julie.
Mm-hmm.
I love that name.
Shout out to Ghoulie Julie at the Whaley House. She did an excellent job. So let me get into the story a little bit for you and tell you why this house is called the most haunted house in America.
What's up with the Whaley House? Like, why are we supposed to be scared?
Before the Whaley House was there, it was a town. San Diego was a town, and this was a public square, and it's often where they would hang criminals. The most famous of the criminals that was hung there in that square was called Yankee Jim, James Robinson. He was from Australia, and he moved to America and discovered that horse thieving was a great way to make money. He did that for a little while until the gold rush in 1849, and then he came out to California, and he did find some gold, and he couldn't keep it a secret, and he told one too many people, and a whole bunch of people rushed in, and they formed a little town in the area. The town itself burned down about 3 years later in a fire that was set in multiple places. And people suspected that Yankee Jim was the arsonist because he was upset that people had come to this secret claim that he thought was his own. But they were not able to pin arson on him. They were able to discover that he was a thief, and they ran him out of town. He ended up in San Diego in 1852 and continued his shitty ways. Was a drunk. We've heard this story before about some people on this podcast. He was kind of a dick. He was a drunk, and he made no friends in San Diego. So he became notorious for being a loud drunk that nobody could trust. And he was never caught, but he was suspected of quite a bit of petty thievery. One night, he and some drinking buddies decided to go steal a boat. And of course, everything went wrong. In the middle of this botched boat thievery, the authorities catch wind of it, track Jim and his buddies down. And during the scuffle of trying to capture these guys, Jim gets knocked upside the head with a quote, rusty sword.
Interesting.
It almost sounds like the reports were trying to nicely say that they hated him, and so he got roughed up a little more than he might have been otherwise by the authorities. This went to trial. He was suffering a shitty head injury and to the point where he was feverish, delirious, not doing very well. His two buddies got a year in jail each, and somehow Yankee Jim got the death penalty. Maybe using himself as a lawyer was one in the long list of bad decisions.
Yeah, right.
So Yankee Jim was set to be hung in the public square. And the way they did it back then is I'm not sure if it was a tree or a scaffolding. I've heard it two different ways. And that underneath this scaffolding, they would bring a wagon, and they would stand the accused on the wagon and loop a rope over the scaffolding and put the noose around their neck. Then they would, smack the horses on the ass, and the wagon would go away, and the person would drop and break their neck in best case scenarios. Well, this scaffolding was built for the average height of people at the time, which I guess the average height of a man in the late 1800s was 5'5". Yankee Jim was 6'5" and extremely skinny. When the wagon pulled away and he dropped, his feet touched the ground just a little bit. So his neck didn't break because his feet kind of hit the ground. And he was so light that it took him a long time, 18 minutes by some accounts, to die from strangulation.
That's a long time. Holy shit.
Crazy, right? And this was witnessed by Thomas Whaley, who lived there at the time. I don't know why people would go watch that. I don't think I would.
People were pretty brutal back in the day. They that was their entertainment.
Well, they didn't have WWE on cable, so I guess they had to get that somewhere.
Public hangings, hey. So the rumor again was that Thomas Whaley was in the crowd, and it's possible because he had been living in San Diego. He had moved to San Diego from San Francisco in about 1853, and Jim had stolen the boat in late 1852. So it's entirely possible that after the trial and such, Whaley was there. And it's rumored that he was. Oh.
So they say that the land is cursed. Again, multiple people died there from hanging, and they say that it's, the horrific nature of Yankee gyms hanging amongst the others has caused the land to obviously have bad energy.
Issues.
So Thomas Whaley is a gentleman from New York, and he married Anna Eloise Delaney in 1849, and they moved to San Francisco before moving to San Diego in 1853. They made their money selling mining tools, I believe, to miners up, the miner 49ers up in the Great Gold Rush.
Right. Yeah.
So they had a son in 1854, Francis, and in 1856, Thomas built a grand house, the Whaley House, on the site of the public hanging square. Again, the first 2-story brick building in the area. It was huge, mansion by old standards. And he wanted it to be imposing. He wanted it to be impressive. This is a man who had named his sons after business partners because he just thought that was the done thing. And in this house, he had built part of it to be a residence and part of it to be town fixture. There was a general store, and what was originally a granary eventually became a courthouse.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the family lived there for several years, and it's rumored that even that family had encounters with the ghost of Yankee Jim. Mrs. Whaley is reported to have seen him in the house, and Thomas Whaley.
Now, did they know Yankee Jim prior to his death?
They didn't know him, but they knew of him because, again, he was kind of a notorious thief, town drunk, and the town wasn't very big back then. And the trial was kind of a sensation.
Like the OJ trial.
Not that big of a sensation, but yeah, kind of. So Thomas Whaley is also said to have told people that he heard footsteps upstairs when no one was there and attributed them to the ghost of Yankee Jim Robinson. So in about 1858, they moved the general store from the house to another building in the center of town. And around that time, tragedy struck the family. The store in town burned down to the ground. And their son, little Thomas Jr., 18 months old, died of scarlet fever.
Aw, that's shitty.
That is shitty. His ghost is also reported to be in the house. The nursery is one of the bedrooms that we could not go in.
Oh, bummer.
But in that room, you can hear a woman weeping, and you can hear a child giggling and little footsteps, like a little kid running through the house.
Like if he's still kind of playing in his room, basically.
Like he's still playing in his room. Or sometimes you can hear his mother crying in his doorway. Little Thomas passed away in 1858, and the family couldn't handle the grief, and they packed up and went back to San Francisco for about 10 years. An earthquake struck San Francisco in 1868. I mean, tragedy just keeps following this family. And after that earthquake, they decide to come back to the Whaley House in San Diego. And this time they come back with 3 more children, George, Violet, and Corinne. They fix up the house, and they lease one of the upstairs bedrooms to, of all things, an acting troupe, the Tanner Troupe. And they turn the room into an actual theater. And it was the first public theater in the area. Now, wow. I've been in this room, and it's roughly the size of a large master bedroom, maybe, with one end of it being a literal stage and theater. I was there with a tour group of about 25 people, and we were sitting on, I think there was like 5 or 6 benches there, and the room was relatively full. You could feel the temperature change once everyone was in there. It was a little stuffy. And as the tour guide was speaking, it was very stuffy. And you could feel it. It almost felt like it was more oppressive than it needed to be for the amount of people there. But at the time of the first play, opening night, they fit 150 people in the audience.
Holy shit.
Now, the tour guide said that some people do report being in that room and feeling shortness of breath. And I did feel that. Again, one of the things that I felt was that, considering it was a cool night and there were only 25 people in this room, it had felt stuffier and more constrictive than it needed to be. So maybe I felt a little bit of that there. But at the time, they reportedly told ladies to not wear their hoop skirts or their petticoats when they went to the play.
Because they wouldn't fit in there.
Because it was standing room only. They literally packed them in. So interestingly, even that troupe was not without tragedy. 18 days after opening night in the Whaley House, the troupe leader, Thomas Tanner, died.
From what?
Mysteriously. Less than 6 months later, the end of January 1869, the Tanner troupe disbanded.
Oh, wow.
when I showed you pictures of the dining room, I mentioned that the dining room is haunted by a small child, a small girl. And I've heard two separate stories. One I found through research that was mentioned multiple times, and a different one, same girl, different manner of death, from the tour guide in the Whaley House. And they have a picture of this child and a little box on the wall. And I'll tell you what's in the box in just a moment. So there was supposedly a playmate of the Whaley children, Annabella Washburn, little 4-year-old girl. And my research says that she was supposedly playing on the grounds of the house, running around with the children, playing on the grounds of the house. And she ran into a low clothesline that caught her right across the throat.
Oh, that's horrible.
The story goes that this little girl was brought into the house and she died of strangulation from a crushed throat. Now, supposedly the story is from a former employee. So this could have been a story that was told by other tour guides. And I did find it mentioned multiple times, but no proof of Annabella Washburn. Now, the tour guide last night, or the tour guide that I saw in the Whaley House, did mention this child and showed the picture in the dining room. But she told a story of a little 4-year-old girl that was playing on the grounds and had found a small glass bottle, a pretty little glass bottle. And it was open. And in this glass bottle was a sticky substance, just a little bit of it. And the little girl stuck her finger into the sweet, sticky substance and ate it. And unfortunately, it was rat poison. And the little girl very quickly got sick and again taken into the dining room where she passed away.
So every time they think somebody's going to die, they take them to the dining room?
Well, it's the same story, just different manner of death. One child.
Gotcha.
One little girl. I'm just not sure if this is entirely made up just to be a fun story.
Which part is real?
Or if it's real. But regardless, there's supposed to be a little girl in that room. And multiple people do report feeling like a low pant tug or a child trying to hold their hand. Particularly women will feel that. In my group, there was a group of 4 teenage girls, and maybe they were just jumpy teenage girls. But before they even said that, one of the girls had kept like wiping her hand at her leg, almost like she felt like when you get a fly or something on your leg and you go to wipe it off.
Yeah.
Or if a dog or a small animal or a small child is coming up to you and you're occupied and you might kind of shoo them away a little bit.
Yeah.
It was almost as if she kept trying to shoo something away there. And when the tour guide mentioned a small child kind of tugging at your clothing or reaching for your hand, she flinched and she and her friends started talking and giggling. So I don't know if maybe she was feeling a little tug at her leg before she even knew about the story or not, but it certainly looked like it. Now,
what about you?
We're getting there.
Okay.
So other than the feeling my breathing being a little constricted in the room, I hadn't seen or felt anything. I was taking tons of pictures and little videos the entire time. When we went up the stairwell, I did take a small video and tried to take lots of pictures going up the stairs, because in my research, I had found that people thought that the exact location of Yankee Jim's death and the gallows was in the stairwell. And a lot of people report feeling constriction around their throat or shortness of breath or even panicking going up or down the stairs. I did not feel any of that. And I was sad. I wanted to feel something. But when we came back downstairs, we then went into the parlor, the downstairs parlor. And that's where they talked about the story of Violet Whaley. Now, Violet and Corinne are the 2 daughters of Thomas and Anna. And when Violet was 19, she and her sister both got married in the Whaley House on January 5th, 1882. Violet married George Bertolacci, but 2 weeks after their blissful nuptials, he left her, leaving a letter. And in the letter, he said he'd been a big fat fucking liar, and he had a horrible past of drinking and gambling and womanizing that he had kept from her and her family, and that he didn't deserve her. That he was terribly in debt, and that he was going to leave for 2 or 3 or 4 years to become a better man, and that he'd come back for her. Big scandal during the day. Of course, her parents were furious, all sorts of upset. Everyone in town was whispering, talking about how horrible this was. And of course, it's got to be all her fault. Violet, who had already been kind of melancholy, she was known as a melancholy young woman anyway, was devastated by this scandal and by the love of her life running away on her.
You blame her?
No, not at all. She wanted to wait, but her parents said, no, dude's a scoundrel and a cad, and no way. What is a cad anyways? That's a bad word, right?
I don't even know.
That's an old timey bad word for a bad guy, a cad. So he's a scoundrel and a cad. Divorce him. So she divorces him and is devastated. And of course, the whole town, all the little gossips in town can't let it go. Not that she did anything. What'd she do? Make the mistake of marrying the wrong guy?
We've all done it.
Right?
We've all done it.
But back in that day, it was all her fault. And of course, she couldn't shake the scandal, and her depression got even worse. So she became kind of a recluse. She wanted to leave town. Her parents wouldn't let her. They kind of made her stay there. I mean, why would you do that? She can't get away from the rumors. Everybody's talking shit about her. Nobody's going to marry her now. They should have just let her go.
It's all about saving face.
I guess so. So she basically spent most of her days in the master bedroom. And according to the tour guide, Ghoulie Julie, she'd attempted to drown herself in the cistern outside where they pumped water. And her father found her and was able to save her. But shortly thereafter, on August 18th, 1885, Violet found her father's pistol and went out to the outhouse, locked the door, and shot herself in the heart.
Oh, Jesus.
Her father again found her, dragged her into the house, and laid her on the sofa in the parlor under the window. And unfortunately, that's where she died. He stayed with her the entire time. She did leave a suicide note. Again, what I found in my research was different than what I heard from the tour guide. But supposedly, her suicide note was a passage from a poem by Thomas Hood called Bridge of Sighs. And it says, "Mad from life's history, swift to death's mystery, glad to be hurled anywhere, anywhere out of this world."
Oh, wow.
Very sad. Her younger sister, Corinne Lillian, was engaged at the time Violet committed suicide. But because of the scandal of that, Corinne's fiance broke off the engagement.
Damn.
Yeah. After all of these tragedies, the family left the house and it stayed empty for decades. Thomas Whaley died in 1890 in a different house in town. Apparently, he died in a fury. He was furious because his children weren't following in his footsteps. His wife, Anna, died in 1905. In 1909, the eldest son, Francis, decided to fix up the family home, and he became an entertainer with the house as a tourist attraction. And he played guitar and would entertain guests. The remaining Whaleys all passed away, and most of them passed away in the house peacefully of old age. And the youngest child, Corinne Lillian, passed away in the house in 1953. And after that is when it became a museum.
So they're literally pretty much the only family who lived there.
Correct. And they all would discuss experience of seeing Yankee Jim, of hearing the children. They all reported seeing the little boy that died there, the little girl that died accidentally, Violet. A lot of people will report feeling extreme sadness, particularly in the master bedroom by the window. And some people have taken pictures of her standing. You can see from outside, some people have taken pictures of the window, and you can see a female form standing in that window. And people, you can't go in that room, but I guess back when you could, people would report feeling extreme sadness wash over them in that room. Now, also in the parlor, it's separated into like a front formal parlor, which is kind of bigger. And then there's like an archway, and it's the same long room, but it's kind of separated into one long part and then a shorter part by an archway. And it's the shorter family parlor where Violet is supposed to have died. And the archway, according to the tour guide, Julie Ghoulie, is where she says that's where the gallows was. And a lot of people will report feeling constriction in their throat or feeling terror standing underneath there. There were 4 people standing underneath that. And again, I didn't notice anybody say anything. The one little boy said that he was really hoping to hear something, but nobody saw anything there. However, standing by that couch and that window is the one place where I think I might have felt something. When I was there, I thought someone put their hand on my shoulder, and there was one woman who was there. She and I were both on our own during the tour, and we would often be the last people in the room taking pictures. And a couple times, like, she had accidentally stepped in my way, or I had accidentally stepped in her way. So, we were kind of on a joking, friendly terms with each other. And at one point in that room, people had kind of started to shuffle out, and I felt someone touch my shoulder, and I thought it was her. And so I turned to be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'll get out of your way." And there was no one there. And so that's the only time I've thought I was so sure it was her. I felt the weight of her hand on my shoulder. I turned to say, I'm sorry. And, oh, so sorry. I'll get out of your way. Ha ha. Because we, again, kind of been the last two people and getting in each other's way a little bit. And there was no one there. I was alone in the room. So that was a little weird. But other than that,
oh, wow.
No orbs, no ghosts, no sounds. But it was a lot of fun. Again, they had the atmosphere going. The lights are all flickery, like old timey lanterns. The tour guide was excellent, amazingly well done, really good storytelling. So a lot of fun. I highly recommend it. You're probably not going to see a ghost.
But you don't necessarily feel like you saw a ghost.
I think most people are a little sensitive to energies and to feelings in rooms. And I like to think I'm a little bit sensitive. And there were times in the theater, again, I did feel a little constricted. And I did know that 150 people had been in there, and I do have a problem with tight spaces. So it's possible that that was psychosomatic, but I did feel that kind of more constricted than it needed to be feeling.
Right.
So there was a couple little times where I would catch small feelings of eeriness or sadness. In the parlor, I could distinctly feel, and again, I'm a parent, so maybe I'm feeling my own emotions of a parent's sadness, but I could feel that wash of sadness. Could I have felt some inklings? I really wanted to spend more time. So maybe a day tour would be nice, because even though you don't get the atmosphere, you can take your time. And with a tour group, you have limited time, and you're definitely not alone. I could only catch a few seconds at a time alone in each room at the end. So you don't really get that time to stand and sit and really feel in the space. So maybe a daytime tour, if you want to do that, a nighttime tour for the tour guide stories and the atmosphere.
Interesting. So it definitely worth a visit.
Definitely worth a visit. I do think that enough people have experiences while they're on either of the tours that your chances are very high.
To what extent, though? Yeah.
Right. To what extent? You might just have a spooky good time. It is a very well-preserved house. It's a very cool house to go look at, to see what life was like at that time. And the history of it is very interesting. It's tragic. It has all the ups and downs that you expect out of a haunted house. So for that storytelling aspect, history aspect alone, it's definitely worth it.
Worth $18.
Worth
Hell
$18. So it was a lot of fun to go there. We'll have to go visit
Very
some more
cool.
stuff. Yeah.
Very cool. I have a couple things I want to point out to you today.
Oh.
Before I get into my story, I have a funny weed story to tell you real quick.
Okay.
So, we're always kind of looking around what's in the news, what's up and coming in the world of marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
I love Daily Mail. I don't know why. I can't explain it, but I love Daily Mail. I look at it every single day.
Oh, what'd you find on Daily Mail?
The article is called "Here Comes the Bud."
Here comes the bud.
Now, this is the kind of family I need in my life. Okay. Bride's brother laces wedding cake with marijuana as video of stoned guests dancing at the reception after eating the magical treat goes viral.
Please tell me they all knew.
I believe most of them did. This was
most of them.
I don't know if Aunt Edna was aware, but when her back stepped.
That's terrible. That's actually not funny. That's bad. Don't dose your relatives unless they ask, please.
So this happened in Santiago, Chile. And so the bride asked her brother to make her wedding cake, whatever.
That's your first mistake. Never ask your sibling to do anything for a wedding, because they're going to do something to get at you. Or is that just my siblings?
No, this is what she wanted. So she wanted a 7-layer wedding cake and asked him to make one of the layers a magical brownie tier. So here's his instructions.
Sounds like my kind of wedding cake.
Dear brother, I want a 7-layer cake. I want one of those layers laced with weed. The rest of the layers I want fine. So brother translates that to lace the whole thing.
Oh, I see what happened. So they knew they were getting some THC.
They just thought it was going to be in one layer, and he did it in the whole thing. But good boy, like any good brother would do. He did make a smaller second cake specifically for children.
Well, at least he was responsible there.
Right. It did say that the guests were made aware before the cake was cut, and that the laced cake was kept away from children.
That's fantastic.
They have over 100 guests, and the family says that the greatest reaction was from the aunt, who complained of ailing back pain before the treat kicked in. And after it kicked in, she was ready to hit the dance floor.
Hell yeah, Auntie.
I guess a video from the reception has made it to TikTok. And like, this thing's gone viral on TikTok.
I have got to look this up.
And it said it left all the guests high as a kite. He said he spent 20 hours making and decorating the cake, and that it was worth it.
I bet. That's fantastic. Fan-fucking-tastic. Oh my gosh. Talk about an amazing wedding.
Just imagine how hysterical if your whole wedding reception was high as shit.
High as motherfucking kites. Oh, wow.
And I guess what he did,
baked.
I guess he used butter with teas. So he made edibles before, so he knew what he was doing. And he also made like a chocolate ganache with
that sounds
weed
delicious.
Infused butter. But they did point out in the article that none of the guests were drugged against their will, and everyone was told about the cake's special ingredient. So it's not like
this
we're
wasn't
not telling anybody.
Right. Yeah, that's the only thing I was worried about.
Yeah, this was not against anybody's will or anything. It was all in good fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
That's the type of brother we all need on wedding day. Just want to point that out.
Did you ever watch that show Bong Appetit?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, great show where they cooked it was a show where a couple people would have people over from a food perspective, and they would add cannabis to it in different ways. It was a great show. It was on Vice, I think. I really liked that show. Maybe that dude should appear on an episode of Bong Appetit. Or I think the new one is Cooking on High, right? On Netflix, Cooking on High.
I haven't seen that one.
I haven't seen that one yet either, but I really did love Bong Appetit. So I'm going to try Cooking on High. Once the Food Network comes up with, they're thinking about Chopped 420 or something, that would be fun.
Yeah, right.
Then it's gone mainstream. But maybe they will once cannabis is legal. Because I know we were just talking about this the other day, Shell, when the feds came out and said that they're going to actually make cannabis legal. The House of Representatives is going to vote to federally legalize marijuana just for the second time in history. And hopefully this time it'll pass next week. It'll probably already have happened by the time this comes out. So fingers crossed, people.
Unfortunately, and this is maybe in Debbie Downer American here, the only reason they're considering making it federal at this point is because we're in an economic crisis and they see dollars.
Quite possibly. That is quite possible. It's always been about the dollar.
Weed will save the world, like we've always said. It really will.
I think it really will help a lot. It does help economies, if they do it right. And this particular bill, if it does pass, it's not going to make weed legal right away.
Right. You're not going to be able to mail it to me yet.
No, it doesn't make it automatically legal. What it will do, though, is states can then make their own rules. Any state that has laws on the books where it's legal, it's now federally legal. And so banks can now take payments. You'll be able to use your credit card.
It doesn't have to be used like an ATM transaction where you get dinged an ATM fee. It can now be used as a retail transaction.
Yes. And the retail stores won't have to transport huge amounts of cash because they'll be able to bank like regular businesses. So cannabis right now is currently a Schedule 1 drug like heroin and opium, which basically
is so fucking stupid.
So stupid. Honestly, the only reason it was put there literally is racism, but entirely different podcast. Once they take it off that Schedule 1, no scientific basis for that. But once they take it off, no scientific basis for putting it on Schedule 1. And once they take it off of that, then banks will be able to do stuff. Shops can take credit card payments. They're going to expunge prior convictions, which is fantastic. They really need to fix some of the shitty things that prohibition has caused. It'll also make it easier for people to get loans. We'll finally be able to get that loan for that big farm/store we want to open, Shell.
Right? That'd be awesome.
Right? I think that'll be pretty cool. So sending lots of energy out to the universe that that this passes and they're able to take it off schedule one. I'd really like to see that in my lifetime. Oh, the More Act. It's the More Act.
You know, two quick things I wanted to circle back to before I get into my little spooktacular story. You had talked about Joe Rogan and his celebrity weed brand.
Seth Rogen. Not Rogen. Joe Rogan's the podcaster dude, very controversial. Seth Rogen is the funny guy. Makes great movies, smokes awesome weed. Oh, makes pottery too, which is pretty cool.
That's where my confusion has lied. Okay, now I realize they're two separate people.
You've been getting Seth Rogen and Joe Rogan confused?
Yeah.
Oh, Shell. Because
wow.
You've been smoking too high THCs.
I think so. Okay, Seth Rogen, funny guy, actor, movies, got kind of a little bit of a fro.
Yeah.
I know who you're talking about. No. Okay, yeah. I gotcha. So, celebrity weed people.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to just quick tell you about two very interesting celebrity weed folks that are killing it.
Oh,
you might not remember this guy by this name, Be Real. Do you remember Be Real?
Yes. Cypress
Hill. These were my jam in like 11th grade, Cypress Hill. So anyway, Be Real from Cypress Hill. He actually has his own celebrity weed brand. This is like considered one of the best celebrity weed brands out there because it's great weed, bona fide stoner owner.
Wait a minute. Be Real. Isn't he like the original Dr. Green Thumb?
Maybe. I don't know.
Dr. Green Thumb.
But he's got shit that's insane in the membrane. But he is actually one of the most legit businessmen in legal weed at this particular moment in time.
Really?
Yeah, it is Dr. Green Thumb.
Nice. Okay.
Dr. Green Thumb. But he has carefully curated like this extremely potent strain.
Oh, what's it called?
Insane.
Oh, nice. Okay.
In the membrane.
Insane in the membrane. I love when celebrities have fun names for their weed.
Yeah, right. Like this guy's got his shit together. So yeah, he's like the Cypress Hill guy, but he's got like this really legit kick-ass weed business that actually puts out really, really good product. And then another one I wanted to point out to you, it's called Mind Your Head by Mickey Hart.
Oh, okay.
For those of you youngsters out there in the listening world, if you don't know who Mickey Hart is, he was the drummer for the most stoned band of all time, Grateful Dead. This guy, I see what he's doing, but he only really has like two products. They call them Magic Minis, which is like a mini pre-roll.
Okay.
And then listen to this. Tell me you don't want this just because of the name.
Okay.
It's called Space Tickets.
Oh, I want a ticket to space.
Right? Well, what it is it's a blunt-like pre-roll infused with ice water hash.
Oh, wow. That sounds fantastic.
And you know how they describe it? It says, this brand is from a true OG and it's sure to steal your face.
That sounds fantastic.
I want my face stole.
I want my face stole. I want a ticket to space and get my face stole.
Yeah. But, Bella Thorne, Glasshouse Farms, got her own weed. There's actually Mike Tyson has a weed brand.
Cheech has a weed brand. I almost bought last night when I went down to the Whaley House. I almost bought some of his Fuji que pesta. I think I'm saying it right. It basically means like who farted. Who's so stinky? I don't know what it means, but it basically means who farted. And it's supposed to be some stinky good weed, and I kind of want to try it. But yeah, Cheech has got a stash. Chong has a stash. I'm interested to try these and see if they actually live up to the hype. Have you tried anybody's famous weed yet?
I haven't. And I noticed Justin Bieber has a weed brand. Jay-Z has a weed brand. The Biebs.
I'm sorry. The Biebs has
weed? It's called Peaches. Peaches by Justin Bieber.
Yes, it is.
But you know what disappointed me the most in the whole celebrity weed game? Jay-Z. He's charging $60 for a hand-rolled joint. What the fuck?
Wow. Is it dipped in gold flake? Like, that's a $60 joint? $60 joint.
And people have compared it to like middies.
What? It doesn't even get good
So
reviews. I was almost thinking about, well, hey, it's Jay-Z. I've never had a $60 joint. I might add that to the list of things I'd like to try. But if the reviews are saying it's like mids, then maybe not. I do kind of want to try these. Why don't we make it a point
to try celebrity weed?
Yeah, pick a celebrity weed. I'll get one, you get one, and we'll try that. And for, hey, fans out there, all of our wonderful listeners, if there is any particular celebrity weed that you're curious about, you want to know if it's actually better than the regular shit that we get at the store or from your plug, let me know. Give us an email, stonedwitches@gmail.com. Send us a DM on our Instagram, @stonedwitcheshour. And let us know, is there a celebrity weed type that you're curious about? Is it Cheech or Chong? Do you want us to try Mike Tyson's weed? Bieber's peaches?
I don't even want Bieber's peaches, but or Jay-Z's overpriced middies. What I want to know, if they've ever smoked any of Jay-Z's overpriced mids, please reach out to us and tell us if it was worth it. Because I feel like Jay-Z should put out a good product, and I'm it's not what's coming across. So if anybody smoked Jay-Z's weed out there, let us know. We're curious.
And let us know what you want us to try. And we'll tell you if it lives up to the hype or not.
I want to wrap up with my little story, my little ghosty story.
Yeah, I'm ready to be scared, Chelle.
This was actually a listener request story.
Oh, a listener request. Love our listeners.
And honestly, send us fan mail because, well, it makes us happy in the morning.
Oh my gosh, we fangirl. You should just see me. I literally squeal like a kid and I get all excited and it just makes my whole week. So yes, please send us fan mail.
We like that.
We do.
I want to start out my little ghosty story with a shout out to Leslie.
Hey, Leslie.
Leslie had asked a while back for us to talk about a little old place in upstate New York, Devil's Elbow. In Owego, New York.
I remember this request, Devil's Elbow. Now, I'm familiar with Owego. We know that area.
We know Owego well. We have been so high in Owego so many times, I can't even remember because I was too high. But I never knew this story, which is so weird.
I'd never heard of it either. What's the Devil's Elbow shelter? I'm going to settle in with a bong. Tell me all about it.
I actually lived in Owego for a year and didn't even know this. So the Devil's Elbow, the best way I can explain it I can explain it to you. Listeners out there aren't going to have a clue what the fuck I'm talking about. But the Devil's Elbow is on what you and I know is old Route 17C in Owego.
Okay. So one of those old county routes kind of winds through town.
It's a major road, but it's like a 2-lane major road out in bumfuck New York.
It's like what used to be the main road before they built an even better main road.
I think the way my mom describes it is they were like the pre-highways.
Yeah.
Those were the main ways to get here and there and everywhere before they built the highways.
All right.
Right. So main drag for your own personal perspective, Laylla, this is in the vicinity of if you took 17C through Owego and we're starting to go out to the other side of Owego.
Okay. Out where it starts to become farmland mostly.
Right. I guess this has been going around for literally 100 years. This is crazy what I've heard. Ultimately, and then there's a lot of different versions that kind of gone throughout time and different people see different things kind of. But the ultimate root of this is there is a woman in white along this stretch of road.
Oh, nice. Another woman in white haunting. I love that legend. That's one of those interesting, persistent hauntings that seems to occur all over the country.
Every state has one kind of thing.
Episode 1, Texas. Check it out.
So this particular part, Devil's Elbow, you can kind of in your mind imagine it's basically like a sharp curve in the road.
Okay. I think I know exactly the turn you're talking about.
It's actually located between Owego and Tioga Center, and it runs along a steep cliff overlooking the Susquehanna River, kind of near the intersection of Route 17 and Skyline Road. to give you personal perspective. The listeners are going to be like, what?
Hey, they can Google. So, Google Maps is the thing.
It is. It is. So this actually started the rumblings of this ghost story started in the 1800s. Leslie growing up hearing this is like, it seems like just kind of town lore, because this story has been going around since the 1800s. Many people have claimed that a woman dressed in all white was seen hitchhiking along the side of the road. People would stop and look for her, and she would vanish without a trace. Kind of like the typical lady in white on the side of the road stories.
Lady in white hitchhiker story. That's fantastic. I didn't know that Owego was home to that urban legend as well. How cool.
And the theory is that the lady in white would ask drivers to stop at the bottom of the hill for a ride. So who is this lady? There's a couple theories, a couple versions on who the lady in white is. Some say that the lady was murdered, but a lot of legends try to pin it back to murder, even when it wasn't necessarily the case.
Yeah, murder or accident seem to be the two biggest themes with the lady in white hitchhiker stories.
But stories vary on exactly what happened. But people have narrowed it down to they believe that one of two possible versions of how she died. So version one is that she was killed by a drunken patron of the tavern located near Devil's Elbow.
Okay. Yeah. Don't drink and drive.
Another version was that she and her husband were both killed by the tavern's owner because the owner stole their cow and killed them instead of giving their cow back.
What?
That's such a fucking Owego thing.
They confront the bar owner over stealing their cow and he shoots them. He kills them
instead of giving the cow back.
He's like, I'm keeping the cow. Lose you two.
Like, I'm not banging on anybody who's from Owego. We love Owego. Such a cute town.
It is a very quaint, historic town. It's really cute. I think that jail's haunted. I saw a ghost in the jail. They turned that jail into a restaurant and apartments, and I saw a ghost there. Different story.
Yeah, different story. But yeah, no, the Owego jail is definitely haunted. Absolutely, without a doubt. But yeah, so the owner stole their cow and killed him instead of giving the cow back. Jesus. Wow.
Why would that be easier? How is that easier? Why would you think getting rid of two bodies is easier than just giving them back their freaking cow? Oh my goodness.
I think it's a pride thing. I think he didn't want to admit that he took the cow. He was embarrassed of his actions.
I guess so. That's some extreme embarrassment right there.
So he thought murder was the only way out. But either way, in 1932, a fractured skull was found nearby, and it was strongly believed that skull belonged to the lady in white.
No way.
And to go back to our people getting killed by axes, axe murder episode, check it out. If what was that, episode 2 or 3 or 4? I don't know.
I'll add it in later. Villisca axe murder, episode 5, I think. If that's not it, future Laylla, add it in here.
But so they believed that she could have potentially been killed by an axe or a board to the head, which kind of follows along the whole tavern owner killing him.
Right.
So they think it was either an axe or a board to the head.
Was it a man's skull or a woman's skull?
See, they just say that the skull they found was strongly believed to be the lady in white. So I'm guessing a lady's skull.
Yeah, they can tell. I think they can tell if it's probably a female skull or a male skull. That's wild.
But you know what?
What?
But you know what?
Oh, there's more.
Ever since they found that skull, appearances of the lady in white have slowed down. Not gone away, but slowed down. Almost like that ghost who wants to be found. They want people to figure it out.
And now that they've found her bones, she's feeling more at peace. Oh my God.
Not gone away, but just slowed down. They always say, so is the lady in white real? Well, only the shadows know for sure. But in the later 1900s, teenagers were known to try and pull pranks in the area, including, this is such an upstate New York thing, including hanging white dresses at the base of the hill and the trees.
That would be so freaky. Can you imagine you're tooling along in your big old Oldsmobile or whatever in the 1970s, and you see the ghostly white thing in the trees and the legend? Oh my God. So scary.
For all you folks out there who are not aware of this fun factoid, Rod Serling, we all know who Rod Serling is, Twilight Zone.
Twilight Zone.
He was born and raised in the greater Binghamton, New York area, which, by the way, for those of you who don't know where Owego is, where this Devil's Elbow is, it's kind of right outside of Binghamton, New York. So Rod Serling was from Binghamton, and he actually wrote about the Lady in White in an episode of the Twilight Zone.
Really? What episode?
It didn't tell me.
Oh, shit.
I will. I definitely will.
Let's ask Google.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Twilight I was going to say I would definitely find that out because that's interesting. But yeah. An episode of Twilight Zone was based on the Lady in White. In upstate New York, in Binghamton, New York, there's a public access channel on TV. Everybody has public access.
Those used to be so fun in the wee hours of the morning, just to get stoned and watch whatever crazy shit people had decided to record and put up there. That was the best.
Can I just tell you though, that's where Teletubbies started, was on public access. So I don't know about
like
that.
I said, whatever crazy shit people had decided to put up there.
People have done news stories recently about Devil's Elbow. One story, and you know how I said they weren't quite sure, they couldn't necessarily like pin down how she died exactly.
Right.
Here's
a blow to the head from an angry, thieving bar owner.
Now, those two stories were kind of the 1800s version of how she died. Now there's like 1900s versions of how she died.
Oh, it's been updated. Lady in White 2.0.
Yeah, pretty much. Some people say that it was a newlywed couple driving through the fog-ridden stretch of Devil's Elbow Hill Road.
It is a sharp turn.
Like I said, which, like I said, is now 17C. And back then, the slope of road climbed sharply upward and then steeply down again. And one of the versions say that the newlyweds didn't see headlights from an oncoming truck, and were hit.
Shit.
Bride died instantly, crushed in the wreckage, and the groom was thrown from the car and died like in the brush a little bit of ways. They also say that his body was never found. So maybe the restless spirit was, she wanted her fiance's body to be found. And when they found that skull, you know what I mean? So I don't know if it was hers or his bones they found, but I could see it by this story. The spirit was
restless because either
like
you
her
said, either
or
one. Yeah.
Right.
Interesting again how in episode 1, when we talked about the Lady in White haunting it in Crystal Lake in Texas, there were multiple different versions of how the legend could have started. There was a lot of different ways, all of which could have been true or all of which could have been fake, but so many different ways that this Lady in White story could have started. And it's interesting to see here whether version 1.0 or 2.0 of the Devil's Elbow Lady in White, that there are again multiple different things, all of which could have happened there.
I mean, they call
it's
her
interesting that a lot of stories in one place.
They say she could be a new bride. Other stories say it was a girl on the way to prom. Other stories say it was like an ill-fated hitchhiker. I think the reason people do that is they update the story based on the time period.
Right. Yeah. The 2.0 story now has things like prom and cars and hitchhiking in it.
A prom dress and a wedding dress, very similar. B, Victorian era garb. That's how they dressed back then. You could call it a prom dress today, and it was like what you wore on a Tuesday back then.
Oh, good point. It's kind of like the alien sightings. People see something they can't explain, like a woman in white, and your mind fills in the details, and it's going to fill it in based on what you know. If it's the 1800s, it's a woman in a wedding dress.
Victorian era garb.
If it's the 1970s, it could be a girl going to prom or a woman on her wedding day. You're going to fill in the blanks with what you know. Interesting.
Right. So I think it's more that than people telling all different kinds of stories. I just think
so people are seeing a lady in white and they're making a legend to kind of try and explain why we're seeing a lady in white. And the only thing we really know is that a skull with a fracture in it was found near that spot.
Right. So you know, there's a lot
crazy.
of people.
That's wild.
You know what's crazy? And
that's fantastic.
Oh my God. So people like that's obviously, I mean, you know that road. It's a pretty well-traveled road.
Yeah.
People have seen her and stopped and offered her a ride.
You'd said that people stop to try and help her or try to find her and they can't find her. They're still doing that.
They're still doing that. And
Holy shit.
some of these people that
Leslie, did you stop and try to pick up the lady in white and not find her? Email us, Leslie. Let us know.
She isn't gonna after she hears this story. So you know the type in that area, a lot of farmers, a lot of big burly country guys.
Yeah.
Like this man who was in his 50s. They said he was a construction worker, which we know the Owego construction worker type.
Oh, yeah.
Felt bad, saw the woman kind of going dark. So, you know, evening, not quite nighttime yet, but not really daytime anymore, like that. That
being chivalrous wants to make sure she's going to be safe.
Right. So, you know, he feels bad and he pulls over and, you know, hey, you want to ride? And she's like, oh, yeah, please. I only need to go a couple of miles. She gets in and he figures, you know, I can take her a couple miles down the road. No biggie. She gets in, shuts the door, and then he starts to drive again. About 45 seconds to a minute passes, and the man looks over to the passenger seat to say something to her, and there's nobody there.
Oh, yes. The legend has come full circle. I love it.
But like he actually, like he had a conversation. She got in the car and just said she only had to go a couple of miles. And then when he looked over again, there was nobody there.
And this is one of those salt of the earth, no nonsense. You know, I believe in guns, God, and America kind of people.
Yes.
And he's not believing in a ghost for nothing. Wow.
Right.
Oh, wow.
These are people that don't believe this shit that are having these experiences.
That's fun. Oh, wow. How fun. Yeah. That's amazing.
And then now there's some variations to the story because apparently a lot of people over the last few decades have experienced similar things, picking up a hitchhiker. And then when they look over, there's nobody there. But some stories go that she leaves behind a white flower or a different white object is proof of her spectral visit.
Oh, interesting. That's a new twist.
Yeah.
The other ones just leave like a puddle.
I guess she can potentially leave something white. Now, the only physical clue hinting as to how the Devil's Elbow ghost came to be happened in 1932. And what happened was, railroad, choo-choo train. I almost couldn't think of it for a second.
The railroad came through?
The railroad came through, and there was a steam engine guy, a conductor. Actually, the railroad conductor, for some reason, and you know, I hate how like society has done this to people. He had more clout than a lot of people just because he was like a railroad conductor. I don't know why that matters.
I don't know. I mean, dudes like the railroad conductor. Come on, all little kids show them a railroad conductor on a choo-choo train and they go nuts. Anyway, it's like primordial.
So a steam shovel operator helping to eliminate the Erie Railroad crossing near that area. You know, the Erie lines for the railroad system go through that area, the southern tier of New York. They, separate and apart from you know how I told you they found a skull in 1932?
Yeah.
Separate and apart from that, another skull was discovered in that area of a young woman believed to be in her 20s. It was found at the west end of what's now present day Glen Mary Drive, which would have actually back when the story was happening, it would have been considered the bottom of Devil's Elbow Hill.
Interesting.
Just today, present day, it's Glen Mary Drive. The county coroner examined the woman's skull and they said it was about 100 years old. And the prevailing theory was that she could have been murdered with an axe or a long flat board. They were never able to identify the remains other than knowing that they were about 100 years old. And historical records in Tioga County, New York, have pointed towards the woman, her killing actually taking place near a tavern called the Broadhead Tavern.
No way.
Devil's Elbow.
No way.
And it operated in that vicinity in the early 1800s. So basically, they like almost like the science behind
kind of corroborated one of the legends.
It did corroborate one of the legends that basically the tavern owner fucked her shit up. But in 1925, that old tavern was torn down and a rest stop was constructed in that area. So if you're on 17C,
that rest stop.
Yeah, between Owego and Tioga Center, that rest stop is where the tavern was.
Wow. Oh my goodness. And where that poor girl was murdered.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
wow.
you know, it basically, no matter which way you kind of look at it, the story kind of is linked to a woman suffering from violence against or involving a female.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
But, you know, this is definitely not, you know, legends of ladies in white or whatever. You know, legends
all over the country. I love it.
Not only all over the country, but you can find those legends as far back to the 15th and 17th century in Europe. So Owego is just another place that has a similar story. You know what I mean?
Interesting that they've got that urban legend is just so prevalent everywhere.
But they basically think that that her spirit, her spiritual self has clung to the location of her death.
And people have been seeing her for decades, centuries, over 100 years.
Over 100 years. I mean, now, because we're looking at 2022, so we're probably pushing 150 to 200 years now. I mean, because they're talking early 1800s while we're in the early 2000s.
Wow.
Actually, if you go on YouTube, WSKG, which is the local public access channel, they actually did a few stories and have YouTube videos about Devil's Elbow and Owego. So definitely interesting. Definitely worth checking it out. PBS. You can go to pbs.org and PBS has a couple of videos about the Devil's Elbow and Owego.
And if I can find the Twilight Zone episode, if I can figure out which one it is, I'll link it in the show notes.
Absolutely, because how cool would that be to find? I didn't even realize that until I was looking, obviously, into the story. I didn't realize that Rod Serling had done, you know, they always say that a lot of the Twilight Zone was based on stuff that happened in or near Binghamton, New York. Well, if you've ever been there or lived there, you know it is the
Twilight Zone.
It is the unholy vortex.
I can see why he used his experiences there to write a super creepy show.
Yeah.
No offense, Binghamton.
You like the Twilight Zone? Move to Binghamton. That's your day. That's your life every day, all day.
There you go.
So yeah, I was kind of surprised that an episode was done. So if you do find that, definitely tag it in the notes so that not only myself, but other folks can check it out.
Yeah.
No matter what version of the story you want to follow, it all comes back to there is a woman on that road who isn't going away. She might not be.
Her story is so sad.
Yeah, she might not be seen every day, like back in the mid to late 1800s. Because, you know, they did, like I said, they did say that the activity slowed after the bones were found. But she's still there and she's still looking for a ride and she's still looking to get away from Devil's Elbow.
Oh, she's just trying to get away.
As much as she tries to get a ride, that's where she is.
Yeah, people try to help her and they just can't. She just disappears, leaving a white token behind. So
Leslie, thank you for having me look into that story. It makes me actually want to go to Owego and check out 17C on a dark, foggy night.
There you go. We'll have to do it. Thank you so much for the suggestion. Anybody who have a local legend or ghost story that you want us to check out or explore, send it on over. We'll take a look.
Let us know for sure.
Wow. Definitely spooky stories this evening. I don't know whose was creepier. The Whaley House was pretty creepy and fun. Yours is super spooky and such a common thread, such a common theme. I think that's really interesting. Is it one of those archetypes that we just can't get away from, or does this type of thing just happen in so many places?
Well, I think what makes mine, I feel a little more spooky. There's a sense of when you know the place and location, it creates this more sense of spooky reality. So like we know where Devil's Elbow is, so that makes it more intriguing.
Yeah, but I went to the Whaley House.
Whereas I haven't been to the Whaley House. You've been to the Whaley House.
That's true. I have pictures.
Yeah, I haven't. So for me, I feel that the Devil's Elbow is spookier because it's something I've
It's
personally
something you're
experienced.
familiar with, right? That's a place
Right.
we both know and have actually been to and can picture. Whereas the Whaley House, since, I'm so lucky enough to be able to go there as part of my research, it was pretty cool. So yeah, I guess, I don't know. Both of them have such a large amount of people that see something there. So I think we're pretty close this week.
And not even just at one time, over the span of decades or even 100 or more years. It's not, whether it be the Whaley House or Devil's Elbow, these aren't experiences that one person or one family is having. This is generation after generation after generation are having these
Yeah,
experiences.
even people that didn't know the legend formerly are still having that similar type of experience there, which is what makes some of these so fascinating to me.
And with my story, the details just get updated with the current century. Is it a prom dress? Is it a wedding dress? Is it a Victorian everyday
Right.
dress?
I love that. And it's just interesting to see that kind of repeated itself so much.
So a shout out to Owego, New York. Good story, Owego. We'll be back soon to check out Devil's Elbow in person.
Oh, and shout out to Alex. Thanks for your well wishes and comments about the show. We really appreciate it.
We love people. I do have a,
yeah,
I have a
we
couple
do
shout
love
outs.
people. They love us.
We're going to take a shout out moment.
Let me hit this joint and chill out. All right, I'm going to chill out. I'm chill.
And then you're going to take a deep breath.
All right, tell me your shout outs. You got any shout outs today, Shell?
I have a shout out today. I would like to shout out my personal hero, someone I have learned from and followed for longer than I've had children or known Laylla, which is a long time.
Yeah.
And that is, shout out to the greatest witch on the planet, the official witch of Salem, the queen of all witches, Laurie Cabot. We love Laurie Cabot.
We do love Laurie Cabot.
And that's not just us just saying that. We are total fangirling on this woman. I almost feel creepy being this much of a fangirl.
Oh, yeah, it's terrible.
We actually got a like this week from Laurie Cabot.
Yay, she noticed us.
Laylla and I were squealing like we were 12-year-old girls.
Okay? Every time I think about it, I just run around in circles and get all happy. I love it so much. One of the first rituals I ever went to was Samhain in Salem. A friend of mine and I had gone to her witch's ball back when I was in college. And then that same weekend, we went to the public Samhain ritual, and I just loved it. It was absolutely amazing. Thank you, Laurie Cabot, for so many wonderful witchy memories.
The first book I ever read on witchcraft, what kind of brought me sucked into the formalities of Wicca and paganism and all that. Power of the Witch, 1990. What?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And actually, almost 30 years later, I still have that original book. I think it's like second edition. I think they're on like 8th edition now. But yeah, I actually still have that book. It's actually right here with me in Salem. Power of the Witch changed my life. Just want to say that. So shout out to Laurie Cabot. We love you. We hope that you get some sort of laughter and entertainment out of us. But we don't care because you liked us.
Yeah,
and that's all that matters.
We don't care. Yay. Yes, she knows that we exist. So how fun is that? I've read everything she's ever written. She's fantastic.
And it's just great.
And it is just great.
We have a lot of great listeners out there. We have a lot of people who've been consistent listening to us. I kind of joke about my game friends. We've talked about my game friends, but again, Ricky, El Chapo, Phoenix, you guys rock. Send me some wood and stone if you guys got any extra, by the way. But anyway, thanks for listening to El Chapo and Ricky and Phoenix.
We
Love
appreciate
you guys.
All our listeners. I can't believe all of the outpouring of affection and stories and interest that we've gotten. Keep it coming, guys. We really appreciate it. So I guess on that note, my pot's all gone. My story's over. It's probably time to wrap it up.
And I'm ready for a nap.
Yeah, well, it is kind of early in the morning for us old witches. So thank you so much. This has been episode 14 of the Stoned Witches Hour. Stay tuned.
Woo, woo.
Yeah, for next week, episode 15. What are you talking about next week, Shell?
don't fucking know. Weed and ghosts and ghouls.
Weed and ghosts and ghouls. Join us episode 15 for Weed and Ghosts and Ghouls as Laylla and Chelle try to outdo each other on the spookiest story on their side of the country.
Spookiest story on the whole internet. Boom. Catch us next week. We're bound to make you laugh and kind of give that little what the fuck look for a second. So peace out, witches. Stay stony.
Stay high. We'll see you next time on the Stoned Witches Hour. Thanks for listening to the Stoned Witches Hour with Chelle and Laylla. If you like what you heard, please rate us and consider giving us a review. It really helps the show out, and we'll definitely take a toke of the kindest bud in your honor. I think that's it. We good.